Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Jeffrey Epstein Show. I'm your host, Bobbycapucci, and this is an episode of the evolution of the Epstein Chronicles. Today, we're going to go back to July of 2019, and we're going to read an article from the Santa Fe Reporter. And the author of the article is Will Costello, and it has to do with the Zorro Ranch. And considering that the Zorro Ranch is going to be playing a big part in what we talk about for the next few weeks at the very least, I thought that it would be proper for a little bit more background on the Zorro Ranch from actual local journalists who are on the ground there and who have the access and who have sources already developed, and see what we can garner from that. And then from there, I know which way I'll have to go. I know which way I should zig, that way I don't zag. Because I want to try and cover some things that haven't been covered before, right? I don't want to go over and rehash the same stuff. So obviously there'll be some overlap. Obviously, when you're doing an investigation, there's some core things that obviously you have to investigate. But I'm going to look at things from a different perspective while I'm in New Mexico. I'm going to look for other things. I'm going to talk to some sources that people probably wouldn't, think to talk to. And if they have, well, we haven't seen those sort of reports. So it's going to be an interesting run, obviously, in Santa Fe. But leading up to that, we're going to definitely add some more context and flesh out the situation a little bit more. Sort of like if you were writing a book. We're going to do a little bit of world building. So if you'd like to contact me, you can do that at Bobbycapucci at protonmail.com. That's BOBBYCAPUCCI at protonmail.com. So let's just jump right into it. The article is from the Santa Fe Reporter. The author is Will Costello, and it was produced on July 9th of 2019. Federal authorities arrested Manhattan financier and admitted pedophile Jeffrey Epstein last week, and an indictment unsealed Monday accuses him of systematically recruiting and sexually abusing underage girls. The indictment of the billionaire named two of his properties, billionaire, pedophile, his Upper East Side loft in Manhattan, and his vacation home in Palm Beach, Florida, as potential locations of his alleged trafficking of child abuse victims, but the wording in the document is just vague enough that another of his holdings could potentially become a target in the Fed's investigations, and therefore a candidate for court-ordered forfeiture, an estate in Santa Fe County. And I've talked about this before. The forfeiture is a big deal. I think it's a big deal for me. I think that they should definitely take this land from Epstein, make him forfeit it, his trust forfeit it, and then it should be auctioned off for a nice penny, and that money should be distributed again to his victims. Right? So I think that would be the proper way to utilize these resources. It's, what else is it going to do? Go back to the state? The state's just as culpable, in my opinion. So let's make sure we sell it off. Let's auction it off, and let's make sure that these girls get a piece of this cut. They go to court. It becomes part of their settlement, right? When it's proven that they were abused by Epstein, or Epstein's attorneys, settle or whatever, then this should be part of that, expect that spreading out of the wealth, should we say, because there's no other place for this. It shouldn't go to his brother, none of that stuff. If government lawyers can successfully prove their case, the indictment requires Epstein shall forfeit to the United States any property, real and personal, that was used or intended to be used to commit or to facilitate the commission of the offense. Sure sounds like a RICO case to me, folks. Accusers say his 7,559-acre Zorro Ranch near Stanley, about an hour's drive south of Santa Fe on Highway 41, was also the site of the sexual coercion of children. And that's just chilling, folks. The sexual coercion of children. And he got away with it for so long. It's so disgusting. He didn't even have to register as a sex offender in New Mexico. He didn't even have to register as a sex offender in New Mexico. Let that sink in. Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell, his alleged madam, and a woman who Epstein described a Vanity Fair in 2003 as his best friend, sexually assaulted a then 15-year-old girl at the ranch, according to a 2019 affidavit filed by the girl's sister, who worked for Epstein at the time. So that's the Maria Farmer case. And we all know what happened there. She's went into great detail. We know that her sister was also abused by these sick bastards. And if the state, takes the land and it's forfeit to the state, then the state should definitely auction it off, and it should go into a trust, and it should be split amongst these girls who were abused there. And then, after all is said and done, maybe the person who buys it even is just a charitable person, right? And doesn't even want the goddamn place. He's just like, you know what? I got $15 million to buy this place. What's $15 million to some of these other rich folks, right? Buys it and decides to just knock it to the ground, because who the hell would want to live in this place, right? Who the hell would want to be in a place, live in a place, raise a family in a place that was the home to these horrors, to this madman and his disgusting band of sick women? The Office of the Attorney General has been in contact with survivors, is conducting a review of this matter, and we will be forwarding evidence to federal authorities for proper action. New Mexico Attorney General's Office spokesman Matt Baca tells SFR via email. I wonder why Matt Baca and his office haven't raided the ranch yet. I'm sure you can get a warrant on it. Call up a judge. I'm sure a judge will give them a warrant. Get up there and see what's going on. It's been how long now? Do you think people haven't destroyed evidence? Do you think stuff hasn't been moved? And that's another question I'm going to ask when I'm in Santa Fe. Recently, who has been to this ranch? Talking to some of the locals, see if they remember any unusual activity, unusual traffic, stuff like that. Because what the blazes is going on? How is this place not raided? How is this place not completely and utterly raided? Computers taken, any sort of documentation taken? Obviously, there's going to be no DNA evidence at this point. So, I just don't get it. I don't, these platitudes from the New Mexico Attorney General's office are fine and well, and it's good. I'm glad they seem to have it on their radar, but let's get some action. Words are wind. Zorro Ranch was not explicitly named in the New York U.S. District Court indictment, unlike Epstein's homes in Palm Beach and the Upper East Side. But throughout the 14-page document, other locations are mentioned, both as places where Epstein's crimes took place and as properties potentially subject to seizure by the federal government. Again, if they do seize these properties, they need to be sold off and put into a trust, because what are the federal government's going to take the money and squander it? What are they going to do? Set up another operation? Use the money they get from the forfeitures to set up another person like Epstein with their CIA buddies? Bob Gorence, an Albuquerque attorney who has worked on both sides of federal cases, says that the wording of the indictment leaves the possibility open to state seizure of any property used to facilitate his crimes, as long as the government can win its case and prove that the property was part of the wrongdoing. That'll be easy. You get yourself a judge. Well, then again, looks like New Mexico is a pretty corrupt place from the research I've been doing, and so I don't know how many fair and impartial judges you're going to have, especially when Epstein was alive. So, again, I don't really know. I'm not saying that it's definitely a completely and utterly corrupt place, but from what you read, it doesn't seem like a place where it's the law is really taken too seriously in a lot of these cases. If he engaged in this conduct there, the ranch itself is subject to forfeiture, Gorence tells SFR, though he notes he's not familiar with the particulars of the Epstein case. One wrinkle. Epstein's name is not on the deed to the Zorro Ranch. Instead, it's a company based out of the U.S. Virgin Islands, a famously opaque tax shelter where Epstein owns a private island. The ranch has been widely identified in the press as belonging to Epstein, however. Look, we know the ranch is Epstein's. We know that for a fact. Again, if you're going to believe Virginia Roberts about one thing, you have to believe her about everything. And I am inclined to believe her about everything she has said until evidence proves differently. All right, I follow the evidence, and she has come with receipts, folks, right? She has come with all of the evidence, and it's obvious that the Zorro Ranch is Jeffrey Epstein's. If Epstein is the sole shareholder, according to Gorence, then it's easy enough to seize the property. But if there are other shareholders involved, things get dicey. The owner company, listed as Cypress Incorporated in county records, is not publicly traded and does not have a public-facing website. Data from Bloomberg Research reports a property holding company called Cypress Dynasties Limited, based out of the Virgin Islands. Another investment firm in Hong Kong, but SFR was unable to immediately determine if it's the same company that holds the Zorro Ranch or who the shareholders are. Of course it's going to be something like that. Jeffrey Epstein, for all of his disgusting, monstrous faults, was pretty slick when it came to this game, right? He was considered a bounty hunter before he jumped into business for himself. He was going to, his job was to locate money that was lost, and he was good at it. He described himself as a bounty hunter. He described himself as somebody who's working for the government. And of course, why wouldn't we believe him at this point? All the evidence points the same way, right? Yeah, definitely some sort of agent for some sort of sick, disgusting intelligence agency. Described as a luxury hacienda, the 33,000 square foot mansion features an open-air courtyard with a fountain and what appear from aerial photography to be several lush gardens. Epstein once said that it made his New York penthouse look like a shack. Oh, I can't wait to get there, folks. I can't wait to hit the ground running. 4 days. I'm spending 4 days. I was going to just only spend a couple of days, but I decided to fly out instead of drive out, and then that gives me the flexibility to spend a few more days there. So I'm going to make sure that I do as much as I can in those 4 days. Another cluster of buildings further south of the mansion is visible from the highway, unlike the mansion itself, which is concealed behind terrain. Cypress Incorporated also owns a smaller parcel of land adjacent to the main Zorro Ranch property, although no buildings can be seen there on satellite images. According to Santa Fe County Sheriff's Department spokesman Juan Rios, the department has never received calls from or regarding the property. The property tax bill for Zorro Ranch, about $109,000 according to the latest assessment, is fully paid, according to a county treasurer representative. The assessment values the property for tax purposes at $15.7 million. All right, so a little more context, right? There's never been a phone call there to the county sheriff about the property or regarding the property. That's a little strange. That is definitely a little strange. If I was one of the accusers, I'd get on that and I'd make that. I mean, if I was one of the people who were victimized by Jeffrey Epstein in this place, I would definitely get on the horn and call down there, and I would tell them, "Hey, look, what's up? What do you mean nobody's come out and contacted you? This happened to me. This happened to me at this ranch in your jurisdiction. I want recourse. I want the law to do what the law is supposed to do." Is that too much to ask? Is it really too much to ask for these sort of powerful people who just live their life on their own terms, by their own rules? Is it too much to ask that they're held responsible when they do something evil? Is that too much to ask? I mean, really, in the year 2019, about to be 2020, we should be living with a higher standard for how much we're willing to give these sort of people, how much latitude we're willing to give these people, how much we're willing to, turn the other cheek and avoid seeing on purpose because it's too uncomfortable. It's time to put all of these people on blast. It's time to light these mofos up. They need to understand that their games are over. The time of them getting away with all of the abuse that they wanted with no repercussions, that's over. We're paying attention now. The spotlight is turned completely and utterly on you. All right, so Prince Andrew's the first one. At the very least, folks, at the very least, remember this. Prince Andrew came into this whole entire thing living the high life still. Traveling, being a public face, setting up big, beautiful weddings for his daughters, the whole nine. Well, then Epstein was arrested again. Then the news started to break. And then, the most important part, and listen to me when I say this is very true. The most important part was the pressure put on by you folks. Going crazy about it, keeping it alive, sending emails, writing your senators, calling your congresspeople, whatever it may be. Whatever it may be. It's because you folks that are so locked into this story refuse to let it die that the powers that be are forced into action. They are forced into action. They cannot ignore it anymore. Their canned statements are not enough. And we're seeing that with Prince Andrew. And I can't wait for the day that the American media does that in America. And if that means Donald Trump has to get not elected and he loses out on a second term, I don't even care at this point. I just want the media to do their job. And once Trump's gone from office, they have no more excuses, right? What's their excuse going to be then? I'm sure they'll try and find one, or they'll blame it on somebody else. They always have to have a boogeyman. But the one thing that has happened throughout this Trump presidency is it has exposed the media for what they are. And there is no doubt, nobody can even doubt at this point, right or left, that the media isn't corrupt. I mean, look what they've done to Bernie Sanders. Look what they've done to Tulsi Gabbard. Andrew Yang certainly isn't getting any press time. So, again, the media is, when I say this, I mean the legacy media, and I mean the powers that be. There's a lot of good journalists. We see that in the articles, but it's the powers that be that are very responsible for what has happened in this Epstein case. And instead of focusing on it now that they have a chance to pivot and do the right thing, they continue to ignore it. But we're not going to do that. We're not going to let that happen. And we see that if we keep up the pressure, there are results. All right? Prince Andrew's never, ever again, anywhere he goes, people are going to know exactly what he is. Even in the worst case scenario, and it doesn't move anywhere else in the world of the law, we already know that at the very least he's been disgraced. And it's a small victory, sure, but he knows in the public eye that he is guilty, and it solidified everything for most people during that interview. So let's keep the pressure on, folks, right? Let's keep it going. Let's, there's so much information. The information is vast in this case. There are so many different threads. I talk about it all the time. You yank on one and you end up in a whole different rabbit hole. But that's okay. That's why we have these daily drops. That's why we're going back and doing these evolutions. And we're going to put it all together. What, 150 something episodes at this point, folks? We're just rolling along. It's just rolling right along, picking up steam, becoming a freight train. And I'll tell you what, I am not going to stop until these people are all facing the same scrutiny that Prince Andrew is facing. At the very least, they need to face that scrutiny here in America and see if they hold up. All right, everybody, if you'd like to contact me, you can do that at Bobbycapucci at protonmail.com. That's BOBBYCAPUCCI at protonmail.com. And if you would like to support the show, you can do that by clicking on the GoFundMe link in the description box. I will be back tonight with a daily drop.